And let me check if we have Lalit with us. Lalit, are you with us? Wait. Hello, Lalit, are you with us?
Yep, I'm here. I was on mute.
Yeah, sorry for that. In any case, guys, I want to introduce Lalit Bhamare. Actually, my friend Lalit. We've known each other around. We've never met. We've been working together, I think, Lalit, for 10 years now.
Almost, yes.
And we've never, ever met, but we're still very much collaborators, and I'm very happy to count him as one of my testing friends. Lalit is currently, just a very brief introduction before I give you the floor, Lalit, but Lalit is Senior Test Engineer currently at Sing. That's a pretty cool job, but I think that the thing that I appreciate from Lalit most, he's the chief editor and co-founder of Tea Time with Testers. And for those of you who do not know that, it's one of the best magazines that we have on the testing industry. It's also free and it's great, and Lalit does a very incredible job of publishing it all the time. So go ahead and read it. It's cool. He's also co-organizer of the State of Testing, a project that we are doing by ourselves. And Lalit is going to be talking today about getting non-testers to test or how to help them help you. So Lalit, I'm going to be making you the host so that you can share your screen.
Perfect. So I'll share my screen. Okay.
Wait. Now we see you.
Okay, can you see me and see my screen and hear me loud and clear?
See your screen, we can hear you loud and clear. Lalit, just a quick reminder to everyone, guys, if you have questions for Lalit's presentation, please start by going over the Q&A, and I will be moderating those questions towards the end for Lalit. And afterwards, we can go over to the Slack channels. But for now, Lalit, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Joel, and thank you, everybody, for staying in late, especially from countries where it's very late and showing up. And looks pretty good. I'm very happy to be talking with you today. I'm going to talk about how to help non-testers in your team to contribute to your testing so that you can do your job as a tester even more better. Joel has already done my introduction. Just a couple of other interesting things about me. I'm also doing BBST Foundations classes with Association for Software Testing USA. I assist James Barker regularly in his rapid software testing applied class, and like write blogs once in a while. I love dogs. I love reading. That's pretty much about me at the moment. Well, I would like to open my talk with this beautiful poem by William Yeats. James Barker mentioned this poem when we were talking and discussing system collapse. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosened upon the world. Does that sound any familiar to you? Other than what is currently happening in the global political scenario, I'm talking more about our software projects. Well, I'm sure it must be the case with most of us, at least at some point of IT career. I keep seeing such failures every once in a while. I'm a tester, dealing with this thing is my job. Why I'm talking about this today is that imagine a situation or imagine a case where you are a lone tester in a typical agile team. I believe this is more or less the case with all modern agile teams these days. And all of a sudden you fall sick or you are on vacation and none of other team members have much visibility into testing and they don't know how to test. What happens in those conditions? How does your team, your project cope up with those situations? In my experience of testing and working with software teams for almost 10 years, I have noticed these problems. When a tester in team suddenly disappears and when project teams, other team members do not know how to cope with testing requirements and dealing with those typical responsibilities that testers perform, all these things together fall into a trap and they contribute to a collapse of a system, or more or less they interrupt and they disrupt the system. There is an uncertainty, there are confusions, there are impacted deployments, pile of untested tickets and unfinished tasks, pending bug investigation, missing risk assessment, and all of these things together contribute to each other. And if they are not controlled properly, if they are not identified early enough, and if they are not acted upon well in time, it results into a degraded feedback for the controller of our project systems, and that in turn impairs the control, and eventually our system gets into runaway mode, as how Jerry Weinberg explains it. And that's the perfect recipe for pushing our systems into a collapse or explosion mode. So what I mean by that, as I said, runaway system, it's like situations when typically things go out of control. The normal operating mode of general project teams they are always running at the edge of runaway mode. But imagine that you as a tester suddenly disappear, or you fall sick, or you have made sudden vacation plans, whatever. Then typically managers try to put other team members and they make them test suddenly. And when less skilled people all of a sudden are put into testing activities, when they don't have much idea about the processes, the techniques, the heuristics, the practices, and all other ideas, it adds and it contributes more to the positive feedback cycles, as Jerry Weinberg explains in his book, How Software is Built. And again, when there is a lack of skilled testing, there is a degraded feedback to controller, which in turn paralyzes the controller to control the system better. And this overall combination may lead the system into collapse or even explosion. To understand these dynamics better, I strongly recommend you to read How Software is Built by Jerry Weinberg, and probably then you will understand these things better, what I'm trying to convey here. But the point is, we must understand and we must identify and listen to these hints and the signals, and we should be able to act on them accordingly early enough in time if we want to avoid situations that would eventually lead teams to collapse. And testers have a very strong role to play here. And my talk is going to be about how testers can facilitate and take a lead here to avoid these traps, avoid these loops, and help project teams become a self-healing system, more or less, if not completely. Why whole team testing? Interestingly, this is really not a new thing, but of late, I think everybody's more or less realizing the increasing importance of these things. My friend Claire Moss, she's also there in this webinar somewhere. She did a talk back in 2014, I guess, Claire, with Association of with CAST conference, and she had also shared very good, interesting ideas there. The ideas that I'm going to talk about are more about today's situation based on my own experiences and experiments I did. But before that, I would like to make some arguments about why whole team testing really matters. Why should we not rely only on testers to do testing? Typically in agile teams, what other team members, what typical non-tester roles can contribute to it? Most of you must be familiar with this story where, or rather experience, where 6 men were blindfolded and they were asked to identify a big elephant. Each of them touched different part of the elephant and they tried to identify what it is. Someone thought it's a fan, someone said it's a spear, somebody found it to be a snake, someone found it to be a tree, someone said it's a rope, it's a wall. And everybody having limited perception and limited access to the information and control of the system perceived the object to be a different thing. And this is why I feel it is important for us to have a better perception about the system as a whole. In my opinion, the way I understand testing as, the way I study testing as, and the definition of testing that I have extracted from my understanding of Nyaya Shastra, which is an ancient Vedic Indian scripture, which is more or less considered to be the foundation for modern epistemology. So Nyaya Shastra tells us about different techniques of identifying, obtaining true knowledge about anything. In my opinion, testing is also about exploring to obtain true knowledge about system. And the ways we use to obtain this true knowledge are based usually on our senses as human being, and these senses have limitations. For example, if you see a pencil uh, inserted in a glass filled with half water or whatever, from a distance that pencil appears broken, but the fact is the pencil is not broken and it appears broken to us. Of course there is a science behind it, but still it's a limitation of our senses that we fall into an illusion. And software testing is more or less a similar job. Our job is to identify separate illusions from reality and obtain true knowledge about system, obtain true information. And this is why when our senses as individuals are subjected to limitations, we are prone to make errors in interpretation of things. And imagine if there are more skilled people together working on a task with their individual perceptions, interpretations, and understandings, we can have a better informed and better aggregated information about things. And this is why I think whole team testing is even more useful if people know how to do it. Some other interesting things. I don't know how many of you have already read this very interesting blog post by James Bach, 7 kinds of testers. So in this blog, James explains different types of testers, typically the 7-1, analytical tester, exploratory tester, and technical tester. I believe each team member in our team who has different skill set, different roles, different responsibilities, is a different kind of tester in it itself. And that different skill set, different perspectives, different experiences in project and technology can help them add different types of perceptions and opinions and observations to your system. And when these all people together work, you have a better coverage of things. So if you are pairing with some programmer or UX interaction designer, for example, and if you observe something, some behavior, your observation, your interpretation as a tester might be different than how a programmer interprets it and how a UX guy or girl interprets it. When you all sit together and draw some conclusions, you might be able to find more information and you might be able to test it in more aspects. I believe it would save a lot of time without having to spend extra time and extra more responsibility on the tester in terms of time. You can still achieve a better coverage if you share the responsibility of testing as a team and take up and contribute to testing tasks without having to be a full-time tester. And when this happens, I believe full-time tester then can focus more on important and high-risk areas. Typically in agile teams, I see right from the requirement gathering phase till deployment, testers have the typical tasks, and very often they run against time. They are always pressured against time, and they typically end up testing those user stories merely with acceptance criteria. And they hardly get any time to test for the thing they should be really testing, for different scenarios, for doing by spending more time on exploratory testing, by spending more time for risk-based testing, finding more information. And if other team members are also contributing to testing, I think dedicated tester would get more time for doing all these important things. And together with the testing team, testers and team together can definitely achieve more than mere checking. As I said, just about acceptance criteria typically leads to mere checking of things, and the actual testing part doesn't really happen because testers don't have time. They have towards the end of the sprint, they are always running against time. And very important thing, to contribute to testing, one needs to understand it first. And if people, especially non-tester in team, understand testing better, it will help team and the controller to identify and listen to those signals that we just discussed before early in time and act on them early enough to avoid a system getting into runaway mode or to get trapped into further collapse. So now I will talk about some of the experiments I did, some approach I followed for pushing and making whole team approach as a thing in my team, not just in current team, but I have been trying and practicing these techniques in my past teams as well. And I'm going to talk about some lessons learned and approaches, what worked, what did not work in further slides now. The very important lesson I have learned from Jerry Weinberg's book, How to Build Software, and especially about when we talk about controlling the systems and avoiding into collapse and explosion mode, is to act early, act small. Very, very important thing. And this has helped me a lot to solve majority of my testing problems, which are more related to processes, systems, and people working together. To act early, you must sharpen your power of observation, and to act small, you must sharpen your understanding of subtleties of human behavior. What it really means, I would talk about it in the experiments I did, followed by these principles here. In order to solve some problems, I believe it is important that we first understand them properly. It is easy to blame and it is easy to say, hey, that this is not working, they're just not ready to test. I believe if you want others to test, if you want others, non-testers in your team to contribute to your testing and help you to help your project team better, you first must try to understand what is their reason behind saying no. I try to analyze these, and these are certain findings based on my experience. I think the biggest fear non-testers typically have when they are suddenly put into testing is they don't know what to test and how to test. And when they are suddenly put into testing activities, since they don't know what and how of it, they go into freeze in the headlight situation. And it is very common human tendency to run away from the problems rather than solving them. And I think I only interpret this no as more of a fear of not knowing what to test and how to test. The other reason, prejudices and stereotypes around testing. Yes, there are some interesting jokes about testing, but this is the most famous one, and it kind of upsets me. I'm kind of fed up with this. Come on, guys. Testing is such an interesting activity, and there could be a lot more interesting jokes people could make about it. But we are still stuck on this one. And this also tells us about the prejudice and stereotypes that people have about testing. Most of the times when I talk about testing with non-testers, their impression is that it's just about entering different types of combinations of the things in input field and calling it done. It's not. A lot of non-testers I have spoken with are really unaware of the intellectual part of testing. They are absolutely clueless that testing is very, very intellectual process, and they are simply mistaking checking with testing. And this is probably why they find it very boring. I had discussion with some of my programmer friends in past, and I asked them what really makes them not like testing, and they said, well, it's all about clicking here and there, and being a programmer, they enjoy more challenging things. Well, there is a problem. There is a problem because we as an industry are still mistaking checking for testing. And if we testers are not very clear about this distinction, non-testers are likely to misunderstand us. And I think this is a problem that we still need to solve. So as I said, these are certain things, these are some perceptions, some opinions about testing of non-testers, which more or less makes them dislike testing, makes them find testing boring, not intellectual. And I believe these are some of the reasons behind their no when they say they won't test. And I acted upon these things with some of my experiments, and I will talk about them now. I started with helping them shed better perception about me as a tester, as I realized that their lack of interest for testing was more about their misunderstanding of testing being less intellectual thing, boring activity. I did certain things, I did some experiments to help them understand that the job I do as a tester is a lot more valuable than what they might have experienced so far. I recommend you that if you want to change their perception of you, you first speak their language and show respect for their craft. The saying no to syndrome is with testers as well. I also meet with testers who absolutely say no for automation, who absolutely say no to any technical investigation, who absolutely say no to do any hands-on assignments with coding, getting their hands dirty with coding and all. And I believe if you want to earn their respect and if you want to speak their language, you also, and most importantly, if you want them to understand your craft and show interest in it, I recommend you start doing this on your own for their craft. Demonstrate your understanding of code when you're in review sessions, when you're in planning sessions, when you're pair testing. Ask questions, go on code level, question them about their logic, question them about the implementation, ask technical questions, challenge that implementation. You have better understanding of the business logic probably, and you can easily identify alternative ways to implement something. And maybe your solution or proposal won't be perfect, but you can at least discuss that and get some respect from the programmers and your other teams. I recommend you suggest process improvements where needed. I recently made a blog post about session-based programming. I got some feedback from my programmer friends who are practicing it, and they're finding it very, very useful. Pair testing, mock testing, or mock programming sessions are very helpful for you as well. Um, I remember of doing a workshop on impact mapping session for my team, and that was also a very good start to initiate communication and discuss some of the ideas that were not just testing related, but more of a process related that could help testing in a better way. Feedback on testability of code. I strongly recommend you, please do this. Please do this. If you don't know how to test for testability, please Google heuristic for software testability by James Bach and at least try to follow the excuse me intrinsic testability checklist. There is a lot that a programmer can do together with tester in order to improve testability of a code. And here testers have very good opportunity to demonstrate their technical understanding and their understanding of software testability, where you can pair together and initiate and build a rapport with each other. Discuss programming concept. I had very interesting discussion with my programmer friends where they taught me about very interesting programming concept, not just object-oriented programming, but I used to question them about their syntax. I used to question them about programming practices. I still participate in engineering heads-up discussions where programmers discuss about their approach of coding, where you can contribute and ask questions and try to understand it better. These are small things that may not directly benefit you as a tester, but your participation and showing interest and contributing to technical discussions and decision making of a project will definitely help you to build your reputation and help them shape better perception of you as a tester. I still remember last year I was complimented by a very senior programmer in our team that for the first time in his programming career, he found some tester to be useful for a project, and it was a big compliment. And I believe this was the result of all the attempts and experiments I did with shaping better perception for myself from them. You can always ask about reading recommendations for them. We have like testing discussion channels. We also have Scrum discussion channels, Agile discussion channels in our team, where we also discuss programming concepts for those who are interested. And these things are very, very useful. Most importantly, don't use bugs as tool to fight, but as a means to collaborate. I have found it very helpful when I debug a code, especially the technical failures that we see in monitoring logs, and collaborate with programmers in identifying them, debugging them, and going to the root of it. This is a very good exercise where you can pair, share understanding, and again build your reputation and perception by asking questions. Try these things, and I'm sure you will benefit in some or the other way. The other thing, take over what you traditionally do not own. Typically, testers are still busy writing just test plan, test cases, executing tests, running automation, calling it done. But I believe, and as Joel mentioned in his DevOps talk, that we are going to do and we are supposed to do, rather we should do more things if we want to become a driving engine of a project team. Take part in code reviews if you're not doing it. Review unit test and acceptance test. Ask programmers questions about their protocols. Ask them questions about their syntax. Ask them questions about their semantics. There are lots of things that you can ask. Stay hungry, stay foolish. If you don't understand, still ask it. There is no harm in doing that. Participate in deployments, rather own them. I do production deployments of my project from almost 2 years, and I see a lot of benefit in that. Please take over the deployments. If you're still not doing it, at least participate in them. You will definitely get benefited by understanding the technical details and other technical internals of your system. Take over production monitoring, very important, I would say. Please do at least 30 minutes of monitoring testing session every day. I recently wrote another blog, session based testing in Agile DevOps World, where I have in detail described the testing monitoring sessions. The production monitoring will definitely help you identify some very elusive bugs, some scenarios that are very difficult to be tested in your test environments. Please do that, and that monitoring logs the errors and failures and exceptions you will find will naturally initiate discussions, and that will more pretty much warrant a discussion between a programmers, where you can pair again and you can have meaningful conversations with your programming team. Don't just report a bug, debug and drill down. As I said, don't use bug as a tools to find but means to collaborate. Here you can try doing technical investigation of a bug. Don't just report it, but try to go and see in the code where it is really failing, why it is failing. Your programmer friends can definitely help you with their own techniques and tools to reproduce these scenarios on your local code. Try it out. This will help you correct their understanding. Now that you have entered their world, now that you have got understanding of their craft, now that you are showing respect and some seriousness to their craft and trying to contribute to it, I recommend at the same time you also help them understand your craft better. I take objection when somebody says, can I QA this? I'm a QA. I try to correct it that I don't QA, I'm a tester. Please understand, this is not about correcting the terminologies. This is more about helping people improve their perceptions about what we do. I beg to differ with Joel. At least till this moment, we testers are not doing quality assurance. Maybe in future, if we get charter and responsibilities and tools to do that, maybe we can. But so far, testers are testers, and I'm happy with what testers are doing today. They should still do these things. Again, testing is not just checking. Still, I still see this problem. Testing and checking are still mixed into, and this is not about, again, a low level semantic fight. This is more about, again, how we look at things and how we define our craft and how we explain our craft to the people who are not practitioners of that craft. If someone doesn't understand the difference between testing and checking, I recommend please help them understand it. And the moment you help them understand, this contributes to checking, this contributes to testing, they will know what you as a testers are doing beyond the checking part, which they have been traditionally mistaking for testing as such. Help them understand that test is a performance, it's not an artifact. Please read again a very interesting article written by James. Test is a performance, not an artifact. These are very subtle things, but they will definitely help you to help others change their perception about your job. Try it. It will most definitely help. At least it will give you some positive results. And again, testing is finding information risk, not only bugs. Traditionally, testers are still expected to find bugs in systems. Some people say we are expected to prevent them, whatever, but it's not only about bugs. It is about finding information and risk, and that involves a lot more than finding bugs in code. The way you introduce yourself and involve yourself into their craft by reading technical webinars or technical blogs. I recommend you also introduce them to your craft, show them how active testing community is. Tell them about online testing conference, tell them about tea time with testers, tell them about Ministry of Testing. There are so many things happening in testing community, and I'm sure they will be surprised to see that testing community is such an active community of people who are passionate about learning and contributing and improving their craft itself. Introduce them to various testing resources, as I said. Share interesting testing articles, blogs with them. If I mention something about Agile, Scrum, or something that involves programming concepts or programming related things, I get my blogs reviewed, draft reviewed by my programmer friends, and I get very interesting feedback from them that it helps me initiate discussions. Write something for your own. Do not publish if you're not comfortable, but do something, write something, get their feedback, try to understand their perception, try to understand their opinion of what things you're doing. Discuss testing with them, which is most important thing. Don't just do your job from 9 to 6 and go home. I would come to this, how to create forums and create occasions where we can enforce discussion around testing. But I have done these things and I have seen definitely great results. Most importantly, if you want non-testers in your team to contribute to testing, do not force sell. Do not say experts in the field are saying this is the new call, so we all should also do. I tried doing that in past, it does not work. Because if people, non-testers in your team are not well versed with what software testing is, if they don't understand what software testing is, if their understanding of software testing is not with your understanding of software testing, if it is not perfect, if it is not near perfect, then asking them to contribute to testing is only going to blow things up. It will increase the positive feedback loop in your system. It will degrade your testing feedback, and you will contribute only to the collapse of your system. I recommend it is very important to identify when you propose holding testing in your team. Look for the signs. I believe the first steps are building your own reputation, try to understand their craft, introducing them to your craft, coming on same page in terms of terminologies, perceptions, opinions, and slowly from here, I suggest you start pitching in for the idea of whole team testing. Some of the signs that you can look for, like, do they seek your opinion? I once in a while, I'm pretty much involved in technical discussions in my team, even if it is not just about testing, if it is about implementing something, if it is about something testing. And this is a good sign somewhere that they take me seriously. Are they asking for your feedback? Are they complimenting your work? As I said, I tried to pitch in holding testing in my team when I got a compliment for a senior programmer about my work being valuable to team. And I thought, okay, this is a time where I can now pull in more people and help them to help me better. Are they showing interest in your work? There are very interesting ways to identify this. If you're going on vacation and if you know that in advance, try to find a backup, not a tester from some other team, but a non-tester from your own team. Is there anybody showing interest in taking up your job? If yes, then most likely they have some interest in the things that you're doing, and that's a good sign. So these are the signs that I recommend you look for. Based on different teams, their configuration dynamics, these signs may differ, but this is something that has worked best in my opinion, in my experience, and I recommend you trying it out. But remember, do not force sell and do not pitch in when it's not the right time. Now, important
Lalit,
yeah.
just to give you a warning, it's you have about 5 more minutes because we do want to leave about 5 minutes at the end for questions. Okay.
Okay, sure. So I need to wrap up faster. So these are certain things I would now go step by step, taking them to your one step at a time. How to really pull them into, starting off with one-to-one pair. So a lot of techniques here. Maybe later on you can read details in the slides. Start with one programmer in your team. Pick them up. I'm sorry. Pick them for testing pairing with you, one ticket in sprint for one programmer, and keep it on rotation basis, and then you will have sparring partner for every sprint. Start with ticket that you may find more interesting. Just if there is a back-end heavy task, pair with back-end guy. If there is a front-end heavy task or UX guy, pair with accordingly. Most importantly, when you're doing your stuff together, explain them what you're doing, which strategy you're using, what approach you're using. Is it black box, rig based? What activities you're performing? Are you doing analysis session, test design, note taking, bug investigation, test data preparation? What heuristics are you're using? Exploratory testing, domain testing? Are you doing techniques in terms of heuristics? Is it FCC cut weights, made a little lamb, SFDR, lots of things. Walk them through your philosophy, your literature, and make them aware of what you're doing. Show them your tools arsenal, bug magnet, test generator. There are lots of things. I'm running out of time, so I will go on to next step. Don't make it boring, please. Please do a gamification of your testing activities. To introduce things, something, it's like introducing some bitter medicine maybe to a baby by mixing some honey in it. Try doing bi-weekly sessions, test sessions, instead of directly starting off with one-to-one. Maybe try mock programming, mock testing. It helps. Celebrate special days in each sprint. We have bug day, we have automation day, and it helps a lot. Give them tester badges. This is more of a very, very interesting thing. After your pairing, give them some pairing badge. Maybe when somebody is serving you as your backup, give them your service badge. For bugs they find, give them badge. For skill improvements, give them badge. Give them badges as they make improvements, and they will probably take it more interest. Use your processes as a catalyst. WIP limits are very important, in my opinion, very helpful. When you implement work in progress limits in your team, it naturally compels people to collaborate together when you're overloaded. And when you have already empowered them with your tools and techniques and other methodologies, pairing should not be a problem. Automation, please make it as a team ownership. There is a lot to be talked, a lot to be discussed here. Celebrate automation. Please classify your SFDI priority instead of classify according to your code stuff. This is something I'm experimenting with, and for the missing link between testing and programming mindset, I think this can be really, really very helpful. Introduce test for testability session, we discussed. Continuous integration is again very cool tool to push people to work together and take testing more seriously. Appreciate their work in retrospectives, say thanks, give flower cards, make their contribution more visible and valued. It's very important. Prepare them for your absence. Document your hacks and script. Please don't convert your testing other non-testers into script monkeys by writing detailed steps. Just share your hacks, create high-level mind maps. Let them think, and empower them with your tools and techniques. Create how-to pages for critical activities. Avoid writing test cases with details we discussed. Keep your testing notes, reports accessible for any future references in your absence. Hitting the brick wall. If they are still saying no, I suggest go on a lunch date, ask them for challenges, offer personal coaching. Sometimes people don't like to be told what to do. Rather, they like to be shown what to do. Do some one-to-one sessions with them, sit together, make a pairing in private somewhere and offer them coaching. Avoid force selling once again. Sometimes peer pressure work. Take help from manager. My managers have been very supportive of this idea, and their feedback and their support has helped me. Try it out. And most importantly, when hiring more, if nothing works, please hire programmers and non-testers with testing mindset. I have explained more in detail in my recent blog, Interviewing Programmers for Quality Mindset. Maybe that will give you some ideas. Closing remarks. It does not happen overnight. I have been trying this from almost 1 year, 1.5 years, and we are still making progress. We are not 100% successful. But it's a small process, but slow and steady wins the race. At least get familiar with their craft if you want them to understand yours. Dedicated testers, in my opinion, still remain service provider for the team. Helping them to help you better is more of helping them to contribute to your testing activities so that you are empowered to serve them better. $1 million statement by Michael Bolton when we were discussing these loops. Loops turn technical debt from a simple shortfall into economic collapse. So please identify them earlier, act on them earlier, and act early, act small. The entire experiment, the things that I tried, all the experiments I did have been part of act early, act small, and introducing negative feedback loop once in a while. And things have been working pretty good for me so far, and I'm happy with the results. Maybe not everything we discuss will work with you, but you never know. Try it and see if it works. I'm here to help if you have any questions. Special mentions for James Buck, Michael Bolton, Ricard, Joel, and Griffin Jones, who helped me shape this web presentation. And here are some interesting resources you may want to have a look. And that's pretty much it from my side today. If you have any questions, please use Slack channel. I won't be there right after the webinar. I need to catch my train, but I promise I will be back after 2 hours and we can continue the discussion if you have any questions.
Okay, we do have about 4 more minutes for questions, Lalit. So there's a question here. I'm not sure if you were asked that or I was asked that, but I would like to get your role on that. And the question here is, where does the role of a tester end? And I think that they're looking into, okay, if both you and myself, where we're both basically mixing everything apart. So in this quote unquote new reality, where does our role as testers, end?
Our role as a tester in current scenario, in my opinion, ends where it comes about making decisions about quality. So our role ends when we have enough information and we feed it to the decision makers about to decide. Like as I said, we are still not into quality assurance. We do everything that can help us find informations and risk. And our role ends when we feed this information to people who can make decision about those.
Okay, nice answer.
Yes, that's my answer. And it might involve anything, doing technical, deep technical dive, doing deep exploratory testing, whatever. Testers should be able to do everything that can help them find information and true knowledge about software.
Okay, I have a question from myself, and I actually like it that this is a process that you are doing and you are experiencing. And I think that some of us might be doing it in one extent or another, but you actually manage to structure it very well. How do you think that we can sell this process to management? Not to the developers so much. I do believe that if we want developers to do it, we need to have management help on that. But how do you propose that we sell this to management in there?
I would suggest just show them this slide maybe. I think if you help them understand how these things and these loops are contributing, this shortfall of technical depth are resulting into economical collapse, I am sure they will take these things seriously. I mean, as Jerry Weinberg describes, most of the runaway systems run into collapse mode mainly because management fails to identify and see those signs clearly and fails to act upon them early enough. This is why act early, act small. Just tell them this is how they can contribute to system collapse, and if they don't want their systems to collapse, they must act.
Okay.
Another statement from Jerry again. Your ideal form of influence is to help others see their world more clearly and then to let them decide what to do next. Help them see this world more clearly about these possibilities, and I'm sure they will take right decision.
In my experience, I think that you're giving them too much credit, but I will try it next time that I need to. Last question before we know that you need to catch your train, but this is a good one. Stefan Paposoy, I hope that I'm saying that correctly. He says that you've been talking mostly about programmers, but in many teams, we have a lot of other people involved. Do you put them on a second plan? Or do you make the same amount of efforts to collaborate with those people and teach them as well, even if they're not programmers?
Yes, so I had this idea in one of the slides where I had to rush. So basically, when you are starting off with one-to-one pairing, I recommend that you identify tickets where you can pair with different role types within your team. Like there could be some work where you can pair with UX or visual design guys. There could be some activities where you can work with data scientists in your team. So I use programmers just as more of a reference, but most definitely you can involve more other people from different disciplines and work together with them. For some usability feedback or functional feedback, you can always pair with your PO for that example, for that matter. There is a lot if you know how to classify and categorize the types of things you would like to pair with. It's just that you need to invest some time in classifying this and identifying what would work best with what type of role. It's all about that.
Excellent. So, guys, I want to thank Lalit very, very much for his incredibly insightful and experience-based presentation. I learned quite a lot. I'm sure that all of us did. Lalit, again, he needs to catch a train, but he will be back on the Slack channel later on. And for those of you who are asking, we will share the presentation with everyone else. So, guys, we are going on a short break right now, 15 minutes as usual. So please make sure to take the time, use it in order to catch a refreshment, go to the bathroom, do whatever you need to do, eat your sushi. And we'll be back in about 15 minutes. Just a quick reminder, we are having lightning talks tomorrow. If you have ideas for lightning talks, we want to hear about you. We'll be back with Jesper Ottosen in about 15 minutes. Lalit, thank you very much, and we'll be right back.
Pleasure. Thank you all. See you around. Bye.